There is a silent pain that almost no one admits, but that all of us at some point have felt. That emptiness in your chest when someone walks away, that sensation of losing the ground beneath your feet when the one who was your center is no longer there. That knot in your throat when you realize your peace depends on someone else. It's not just sadness, it's emotional slavery disguised as love. And as long as you don't see it, it consumes you little by little. Have you ever asked yourself why it hurts so much? Why you can't stop thinking about that person? Why every memory haunts you? Why you feel that without them you are nothing? The answer is not in what you lost, but in how you learn to relate. You call love something that in reality is often emotional attachment, a bond born of fear, not of freedom. Attachment is invisible, but it governs your life. It makes you hand over your worth to others, measure your happiness based on their actions, expect from them the peace that only you can find within yourself. It's a silent habit that grows without you noticing. It begins with small concessions, with that "I need you" that seems tender, with that "I can't live without you" that sounds romantic. And it ends up stealing the most valuable thing you have, your emotional autonomy. And I know it hurts. It hurts when the one you love doesn't respond the same way. It hurts when you place your whole world in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to hold it. It hurts when you believed in forever and discover that nothing is. But the pain, however deep, can be a teacher if you learn to listen. Because behind that wound, there is a truth that the Stoics understood centuries ago. You don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because of how you interpret it. Marcus Aurelius wrote it with the calm of someone who had accepted impermanence. Everything you see will soon alter and disappear. And even though these words may seem cold, they hold immense freedom. When you understand that nothing belongs to you, that nothing lasts forever, that every person, every moment, and every relationship is temporary, you learn to love without chains. Attachment promises you security, but condemns you to anxiety. It whispers that you need to control, that you need to hold on, that you need guarantees, and at the same time, it steals the peace you're looking for. You live trapped in future scenarios, afraid of losing, afraid of being left, afraid of change, and meanwhile, the present slips away. You live to hold on to what you cannot control, but here is the key. Suffering doesn't come from loving, but from clinging. Loving from freedom is giving without fear, receiving without demand, being grateful without expectation. It is choosing every day, not needing. It is being complete with yourself before you share yourself with another. Stoicism doesn't teach you to stop feeling. It teaches you to stop depending, and that is true strength. Seneca said it with simplicity. Love as if one day you will have to let go. Not because you should expect everything to end, but because this way you learn to live love for what it is, a gift, not a chain. The problem is not feeling, but wanting to possess. The problem is not that someone leaves, but believing your life loses meaning without that person. Maybe today you are listening to this because something inside you knows you can't go on like this, that you have given too much, that you've lost yourself while trying to hold on to another, that you've let your days revolve around someone else, forgetting your own essence. And I want you to understand, you are not broken, you are not weak, you are not less for having loved. You have only forgotten what the Stoics never did. Your peace cannot depend on anything external, because everything external changes. People change, relationships change, you yourself change. Nothing is stable, and clinging to the unstable is building your happiness on quicksand. That is why you suffer, not because of what happens, but because you resist accepting it. Attachment turns the inevitable into the unbearable, but there is a way out. It's not about becoming cold, renouncing feeling, or building walls to avoid loving. It's about training conscious detachment, learning to love from abundance, not from lack. Enjoying what you have without turning it into a need, living with intensity, knowing nothing is eternal, and that it's okay that way. Epictetus left us a powerful reminder. It's not loss that grieves you, but the illusion of possession. When you let go of that illusion, you recover something you thought you had lost, your inner freedom, and it is from that freedom that you can build healthier, more authentic, deeper relationships. Because when you don't need to possess, you can choose to truly love. This path is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and practice. It requires facing your fears, your wounds, your most uncomfortable thoughts. It requires unlearning ideas you've believed your whole life about love, commitment, and self-worth. But the price of not doing so is higher, living trapped, depending, begging for crumbs of affection while forgetting your own dignity. Today, I want to invite you to question everything you thought you knew about attachment, to look at yourself with honesty, to understand that your peace and your power have always been within you, to walk hand in hand with Stoicism, which reminds us that virtue, clarity, and serenity don't come from controlling others, but from governing ourselves. Because only when you stop suffering from emotional attachment do you learn to truly love, without chains, without fear, without losing yourself in another. Loving from freedom is the highest form of love, and it is within your reach, here and now. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by leaving in the comments. From today, I choose to let go of attachment. That phrase will be your reminder that you are here to recover your peace, rebuild your emotional freedom, and stop living chained to what you cannot control. This is the moment to prove to yourself that you deserve love without chains, serenity without fear, and a life guided by your purpose, not by your dependency. Without further ado, let's begin. First Stoic lesson: accept the impermanence of everything. You suffer because you cling, because you believe things should last forever, that the people you love will never leave, that beautiful moments will remain intact. But the truth is different. Nothing lasts. Everything changes, transforms, disappears, and the more you resist this truth, the more it hurts. Marcus Aurelius understood it with disarming clarity. Everything you see will soon alter and disappear. Every time we read these words, we feel a blow of reality. Nothing, not you, not me, not the people we love, not the situations we live through, is eternal. And yet we live as if it were. We want things to last, for forever to be real, for love to be indestructible and relationships unbreakable. But life shows us again and again that this doesn't exist. Impermanence is uncomfortable. We are unsettled by the thought that someone who loves us today may not be there tomorrow. We struggle to accept that everything we value is subject to change, that nothing can be held forever. But denying this reality doesn't protect us, it condemns us. Every time you fight against the fact that everything passes, you create your own suffering. Attachment is born from this denial. You cling to a person, to a relationship, to a promise, as if holding it tightly were enough to stop time. And when it changes, when it ends, when it transforms, you feel as though the world collapses. It's not the loss that hurts, it's the broken illusion. It's discovering that what you thought eternal was always fragile. Imagine for a moment that you start to see everything around you with a different awareness. That every person you love, every moment you live, every word you hear is borrowed. They don't belong to you. They are here now, but not forever. And precisely because they don't last, they are valuable. Impermanence doesn't take beauty away from life, it gives it. The problem is that we confuse love with possession. We believe loving is holding, guaranteeing, securing. But when you love from attachment, you live with fear. Fear of losing, fear of change, fear of someone leaving, and fear contaminates love, turns it into control, makes it dependency. The Stoics invite us to love in a different way. Seneca summed it up with the phrase, "Love as if one day you will have to let go." Not because you should expect everything to end, but because loving with awareness of impermanence frees you. It allows you to enjoy people without wanting to possess them. It teaches you to be grateful for the time shared without demanding guarantees. When you integrate this truth, something profound changes inside you. You stop negotiating with life. You stop demanding that people be eternal. Stop blaming fate for not making things last. You learn to be present, to see the beauty of what you have now, without anxiety about what could happen tomorrow. You begin to understand that everything that comes will also leave, and that's okay. Emotional attachment, on the other hand, chains you to unrealistic expectations. It makes you believe you'll only be fine if nothing changes, if things stay the same, if that person never leaves. But that silent pact with eternity doesn't exist, and when reality breaks it, as it always does, you feel that life has betrayed you. In truth, what betrayed you was your own illusion. Accepting impermanence doesn't mean becoming cold or stopping love. It means loving better. Loving with full awareness that nothing belongs to you, and precisely for that reason, valuing it more. When you understand that each conversation could be the last, you listen more attentively. When you know each embrace could be the last, you hold tighter. When you accept that everything changes, you live more present. Epictetus left us a powerful teaching. Do not wish that things happen as you imagine. Accept that they happen as they do, and your life will be serene. Here lies the root of Stoic peace, letting go of the fantasy of control and learning to walk with change, not against it. Today, as you listen to this, think about the people who are part of your life. Think about the bonds you sustain, the memories you treasure, the promises you were given. See them for what they are, living, fleeting, unrepeatable moments. Enjoy them, value them, but don't chain yourself to them, because when their time passes, as everything does, acceptance will be your lifeline. You may not be able to prevent something from ending, but you can choose how you go through it. You can choose to let go in peace, to be grateful for what you lived, to open space for the new. Life doesn't rob you, it transforms you. You don't lose people, moments, or relationships. You gain awareness, strength, depth. Impermanence is not the enemy, it's the teacher that shows you how to let go of what you don't control, to embrace what you do, who you choose to be in the midst of change. The suffering from attachment doesn't break all at once, but with daily practice. Start today. Every time you feel fear of losing, remind yourself, you possess nothing, you only share it for a while. Every time anxiety to hold on invades you, ask yourself, what if, instead of trying to stop it, I simply live it? Serenity comes when you stop fighting against the flow of life and begin to move with it. Accept impermanence. Accept that everything changes. Accept that nothing belongs to you. Because only from that acceptance can you live in peace, love without chains, and stop suffering for what was never under your control. Second Stoic lesson: distinguish between love and dependence. There is a point in every relationship where love stops being love and turns into something heavier. You don't notice it at first. It begins subtly, with small gestures, with phrases that seem innocent. I need you. I can't live without you. You are my everything. It sounds romantic, even sweet, but behind those words lies a silent trap: emotional dependence. And it is there, without you realizing it, where suffering begins. Emotional attachment is not love. It is fear disguised as affection. It is fear of losing, fear of being alone, fear of facing your own emptiness. When you depend on someone to feel complete, you hand over your happiness as a hostage. You no longer decide for yourself, you decide based on how you believe the other will respond. Every unanswered message steals your peace. Every different gesture becomes a storm. Every silence weighs like a sentence. And the more you try to cling, the further the peace you seek slips away. Stoicism invites us to question this way of loving. Seneca, with his usual clarity, wrote, "Love as if one day you will have to let go." Not because love should be lived with fear, but because loving with the awareness of impermanence sets you free. If you accept that people don't belong to you, that every bond is temporary, that every story can change, then you choose to love without chains. Love stops being possession and becomes choice. Imagine two people walking together. In healthy love, each one chooses their own pace, decides where they are going, enjoys the journey, yet remains free. In dependence, however, one clings to the other as if they were the only way to move forward. They stop walking by choice and start walking by necessity. The result? Anxiety, control, exhaustion. Because love born of need always brings suffering. The difference between love and dependence lies in the origin. Love is born of fullness. Attachment is born of lack. If you seek in someone else what you do not give yourself, your peace will always be out of reach. You will constantly need attention, validation, words of affirmation. And when you don't receive them, you will feel suffocated. When they look at you differently, you will feel invisible. When they leave, you will believe you are destroyed. But the problem is not the other. It is forgetting that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, do I love this person for who they are, or do I fear losing them because I don't know how to be with myself? The answer may hurt, but it can also save you. If you discover that what binds you is not love but fear, you stand before an immense opportunity to reclaim your emotional freedom, not to love less, but to love better. Marcus Aurelius said it with serenity. The soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you repeat silently, "Without you, I am nothing," your mind believes it, and your identity dissolves. You become an extension of the other and vanish within your own bond. But when you remind yourself that you are already complete, that your worth does not come from what someone else feels for you, you recover your center. You stop begging for affection. You stop needing to possess. You begin to love from abundance and not from lack. Attachment locks you in an invisible cage. You think you are caring, but you are controlling. You think you are loving, but you are fearing. You think you are free, but you are living conditioned by someone else's response. And when the other leaves, when they change, when they choose differently, the blow is devastating, not only because you feel you lost them, but because you feel you lost yourself. Loving in a healthy way does not mean coldness. It does not mean ceasing to feel or closing your heart. It means understanding that you can choose to be with someone without needing them to live. It means recognizing that sharing is beautiful but not mandatory. It means that you are master of yourself, of your thoughts, your emotions, even your pain. Stoicism reminds you that your center cannot be outside of you. That virtue, calm, and dignity are built from within. Epictetus left us a phrase that captures this truth. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them. If you believe you need someone to be okay, you will suffer even when there is no reason to suffer. But if you understand that love is choosing, not possessing, fear disappears. You begin to enjoy every moment with the other without obsessing about the future. You stop demanding impossible promises and start valuing what exists here and now. Perhaps today you feel trapped in a bond where you confuse love with need. Perhaps you have given more than you wanted, silenced what you thought, changed your essence so as not to upset. All because of the fear of losing. But listen to this. It is not about the other completing you. It is about you choosing yourself first. When you choose yourself, love doesn't hurt as much because you are no longer a hostage to what happens outside of you. Distinguishing between love and dependence is an act of courage. It is learning to let go of the idea that someone else defines your worth. It is understanding that you can love deeply and still be complete within yourself. It is discovering that the greatest love begins with you. When you love from freedom, you don't hold, you accompany, you don't demand, you share, you don't lose yourself, you expand. And from there, bonds stop being chains and become spaces where you choose, grow, and flourish. And so, even if one day the paths separate, you don't lose yourself in the fall, because you still have you. Love without attachment is not only possible, it is the only love that doesn't destroy. The Stoics knew this well, and now you remember it too. Third Stoic lesson: live the dichotomy of control. The deepest suffering does not come from love, but from the illusion of control. You try to hold on to what you cannot, to shape what does not depend on you, to force things to be the way you imagine them, and the more you cling, the more reality wounds you. You don't suffer because someone changes, because they leave, or because they no longer choose you. You suffer because you believed you could stop it from happening. Emotional attachment feeds on this fantasy, believing that if you do everything right, if you give your all, if you try hard enough, the other person will stay. That your happiness is possible only if you manage to control someone else's decisions, feelings and actions, but that never belong to you. Trying to hold on to it is like trying to stop the wind with your hands. The tighter you close your fingers, the faster it slips away. Epictetus, the Stoic master, summed it up in a phrase that can save you. Some things are up to us, and others are not. It sounds obvious, but we live forgetting it. What depends on you are your thoughts, your actions, your choices, how you interpret what happens. What does not depend on you are what others feel, what they decide, whether they stay or leave. And yet, we pour our strength into changing what is beyond our reach, while neglecting the only thing we truly can govern, ourselves. Imagine you are holding two different strings in each hand. In your right hand, you have everything that depends on you, your thoughts, your words, your actions, your attitude toward what happens. In your left hand, you hold what does not depend on you, other people's decisions, their emotions, their priorities, the passage of time, impermanence itself. Peace comes when you stop pulling on the left string, when you stop fighting against what you cannot change. But what we usually do is the opposite. We waste energy chasing messages that never come, trying to please so we won't be abandoned, giving more than we have in the hope of being chosen. We believe that if we just do enough, nothing will change. And when the inevitable reality asserts itself, when the other person leaves, chooses differently, or simply no longer feels the same, we feel the world collapse. Not because they are gone, but because we discover we never had control. Stoicism does not ask you to give up love, but to give up the illusion of control. You can choose to love deeply, but you cannot choose to be loved in the same way. You can act with virtue and devotion, but you cannot decide the outcome. As Marcus Aurelius said, love yourself and accept what nature gives you. Resisting this is like fighting against the sea. You exhaust yourself without moving it an inch. When you practice the dichotomy of control, you reclaim your power. You no longer live according to others' reactions. You no longer condition your worth to their responses. You no longer depend on someone staying in order to feel complete. You stop living in a state of waiting, begging, demanding. Your energy returns to you, to what you can build, improve, transform. This does not mean indifference or coldness. It means loving from freedom. It means being with someone because you choose to, not because you need to. It means that even when you give your best, you accept that the result does not belong to you. It is the greatest act of humility and strength, to give everything and, at the same time, let go of the obsession to control the outcome. Epictetus also taught, do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will live serenely. Serenity is not found in forcing the external, but in harmonizing with it. When you understand this, every bond stops being a chain and becomes a gift. You enjoy it while it lasts. You are grateful for what you experienced, and when it ends, you let go without destroying yourself. Living this lesson means training the muscle of acceptance. It means repeating silently every time you feel anxious about holding on, this does not belong to me. It means learning not to negotiate with reality. It means letting people be who they are, even if that means they choose a different path. It means recognizing that your dignity does not depend on what others do, but on what you choose to do with your life. Perhaps today you are trapped in a bond where you believe that if you just try a little harder, nothing will change. Maybe you repeat silently that if you do everything right, they will choose you forever. But the truth is that no one can promise you eternity. The only certainty is this moment, and your power lies in how you live it. The dichotomy of control is not resignation, it is freedom. It is the constant reminder that the essential lies within you, in your ability to choose virtue, to protect your peace, to walk with dignity even when the world does not respond as you would like. It is the art of giving everything and letting go of everything at the same time. When you understand this, you stop feeling like you are losing, because nothing that does not belong to you can ever truly be yours. And when you let go, you make room for the only thing that really matters, your serenity, your growth, your purpose. To love through acceptance, not possession, to give without demanding, to share without clinging, to be grateful without complaining, that is living from Stoic freedom. And it is here where attachment ceases to be a prison and love becomes a choice. Fourth Stoic lesson: train conscious detachment. You've been taught that to love means to cling, that the intensity of a bond is measured by how much it hurts to imagine your life without someone, that being whole depends on another's presence, attention, and permanence. But what no one tells you is that this romanticized idea of love is the root of much of your suffering. Emotional attachment makes you believe love is possession, when in reality it is freedom. And until you understand this, you will remain trapped in an endless cycle of dependence, anxiety, and pain. Conscious detachment does not mean shutting off your heart, living with coldness, or renouncing feeling. It means something much deeper: learning to love from freedom, not from need. To love because you choose to, not because you depend on it. To be with someone because they add to your life, not because without them you believe you are nothing. Stoicism teaches that detachment is an act of strength, not indifference. Marcus Aurelius wrote with the serenity of one who understood life's constant change. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. Think about what these words mean. Everything that comes into your life is a temporary gift. People, stages, moments. None of it belongs to you, no matter how much you want to believe it does. You cannot hold on to what is not meant to stay, and there is no greater suffering than living as if you could. Attachment is born from a silent confusion. You confuse your identity with your bonds. You believe your worth lies in being loved, that your wholeness depends on who accompanies you, that your happiness is measured by the attention you receive. In this way, you make the other person the center of your world and lose yourself. And when that person changes, leaves, or chooses a different path, you feel as if a piece of you has been torn away. But what you actually lose is not them, but the idea you built of yourself through them. That's why conscious detachment begins with you. Learn to be enough for yourself. Dedicate time to knowing who you are, discovering what moves you, what inspires you, what sustains you. Cultivate your passions. Invest energy in your personal growth. Create spaces and routines that don't depend on anyone else. When you learn to be well with yourself, everything changes. Relationships stop being chains and become free choices. Stoicism reminds you that true strength lies not in holding on, but in letting go. Epictetus taught it with precision. Do not wish for things to happen as you want, wish for them to happen as they do. Life will change the rules on you again and again. Today someone is here, tomorrow they are not. Today you have certainties, tomorrow doubts. Today you believe everything is stable, tomorrow the ground trembles beneath your feet. Serenity comes when you learn to move with change, not against it. This doesn't mean giving up love. On the contrary, it means loving better. Love from detachment doesn't demand, condition, or complain. It doesn't need promises of forever to exist. It loves because it chooses love, not because it fears loss. It is a love celebrated in the present, without the weight of forevers that eventually suffocate. When you love this way, you stop measuring your worth by another person and begin to live healthier, more authentic, deeper relationships. Training conscious detachment also means making peace with impermanence. Nothing in life is fixed. Everything changes. The people you love will change too. Sometimes they will grow with you, sometimes in another direction. Resisting this is like trying to stop the passage of time with your hands. You wear yourself down and break apart. But when you accept the transitory nature of things, you learn to enjoy what you have while you have it, without anxiety, without fear, without struggle. Seneca explained it with brutal clarity. The wise man is content with himself, but enjoys others. You don't need to renounce companionship, affection, or love, but your well-being cannot depend on it. Enjoy the people who pass through your life. Give them your time, your attention, your care, but do not hand them your peace, because if your calm depends on what others do or feel, it will never truly be yours. Conscious detachment is daily training. Begin with small acts of emotional independence. Learn to be alone without feeling incomplete. Dedicate moments to listening to yourself, to observing your thoughts, to identifying where your fear of loss comes from. Do things for you, for your own sake, without seeking external approval. And every time you feel the urge to control, breathe and remember, the only thing you control is how you choose to live what happens. You may think this is hard, and it is. But harder still is living chained to the need to be loved in order to feel enough. Harder still is losing yourself, trying to hold on to what you cannot. Harder still is spending your life waiting for others to complete you, without realizing you were already complete from the start. Conscious detachment is not coldness, it is self-love. It is not indifference, it is presence. It is not renouncing connection, it is choosing it without fear. When you train your soul to be enough for itself, you discover you can love deeply without your happiness depending on the other person. And then, paradoxically, you begin to love better. You don't need to stop feeling. You need to stop depending. You don't need to build walls. You need to learn to drop chains. Conscious detachment is freedom. It is reclaiming your center. It is remembering that your worth is not measured in anyone's eyes, but in how you choose to live your own life. Because when you do not cling, nothing can break you. And when nothing can break you, you can give yourself to love without fear, without need, without anxiety. You can love because you want to, not because you need to. And in that free, healthy, conscious love, you find the peace you have always been searching for, the peace of being enough for yourself and choosing from fullness, not from lack. Fifth Stoic lesson, learn to observe your thoughts. Emotional attachment does not arise from what others do, but from what you tell yourself about what they do. It is not the silence of the other that hurts you, it is the meaning you give it. It is not their leaving that destroys you, it is what you think when they are no longer there. Suffering does not live in reality, it lives in your interpretation of reality. And if you do not learn to observe your mind, you become its slave. Epictetus expressed it with the precision of one who had understood the origin of human pain. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them. This sentence changes everything if you truly let it in, because it means that even though you cannot control what happens outside of you, you always have power over how you live it. Your mind can be your refuge or your prison. And Stoicism exists to teach you how to free yourself from those invisible chains. When you live trapped in emotional attachment, your mind never rests. You analyze every gesture, interpret every word, fill every silence with stories. You invent explanations, fabricate scenarios, imagine alternate endings. And the more you think, the more you suffer, because you are not living what is actually happening, but everything you believe it means. You drown in a sea of thoughts that seem real, but exist only in your head. Learning to observe your mind does not mean repressing what you feel. It means stepping back and looking from the outside. Imagine for a moment that you become a spectator of your own thoughts, like someone watching clouds pass in the sky. You see them, you acknowledge them, you let them pass. I feel fear, I feel sadness, I feel anger. You name them, but you do not define yourself by them. You stop being your pain and begin to be the one who observes it. That is where your freedom begins. Stoicism invites you to train this inner distance every day. When your mind tells you, "Without this person I am nothing," stop and ask yourself, is this a fact or an interpretation? When you think, "I'll never find something like this again," observe it. Can you know that with certainty? When you hear your inner voice saying, "I can't live without him, without her," question it. Can you really not? Or are you simply afraid of change? Each time you challenge your thoughts, you weaken them. Each time you take them as absolutes, you give them power over you. The key is to understand that you cannot control what you think, but you can decide what to believe. Your thoughts are like visitors. They arrive, they knock at the door, and sometimes they settle in without asking permission, but you decide whether to invite them to stay or let them go, and the more conscious you are of them, the less dominion they have over you. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, left us an invaluable reminder. If something external troubles you, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Think about the depth of these words. If your pain depends on your judgment, it means you can also ease it by transforming your perspective. Not by denying reality, but by choosing to see it clearly, without the layers of expectations, fears, and fantasies that attachment has built. Notice how your mind reacts when someone walks away or does not respond as you expect. Notice the narrative you create. I am not enough. I will never find someone like this. I did something wrong. I am being replaced. Notice how your mind turns another's action into a personal condemnation. And remember, those thoughts are not facts. They are only learned interpretations, mental habits you repeat again and again. If you question them, they lose strength. If you blindly believe them, they become your prison. Emotional detachment is not achieved by ceasing to feel, but by learning to feel without being trapped by what you think. When you observe your thoughts, you reclaim your inner space. You begin to notice that, although your mind screams, there is a part of you that can remain serene, steady, untouched. That is your true essence. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches them pass by. Practicing this requires discipline. The Stoics knew it and trained their minds every day. You can do the same. Dedicate moments of silence to sit with yourself. Notice what stories repeat in your head. Write them down if necessary. Look at them directly and ask yourself, is this true? Does it serve me to think this way? What would happen if I didn't believe this thought? You will discover that much of your pain does not come from reality, but from the filter through which you look at it. It is not an immediate process. There will be days when your mind screams louder than your reason. There will be moments when you believe everything you think, as if it were an unquestionable truth. But with practice, you will become more skillful. You will begin to distinguish between what is happening and what you imagine, between what you can control and what you cannot, between the inevitable pain and the unnecessary suffering you impose on yourself. The power you seek lies in your attention. If you get lost in your thoughts, you get lost in them. But if you learn to observe them from the outside, you regain the clarity to choose. Because life is not governed by your emotions, but by what you decide to do with them. And when your mind stops dragging you, your heart also begins to heal. Epictetus summed it up in a phrase that could save you. It is not what happens to you that harms you, but how you react to it. And observing your thoughts is the first step to stop reacting automatically and start living with intention. You cannot prevent your mind from producing fear, jealousy, anxiety, or memories, but you can choose not to be consumed by them. You can learn to breathe in the middle of the storm, to distinguish what is real from what is a story created by your mind. And above all, you can discover that inner silence does not come when you control your thoughts, but when you stop believing them all. When you learn to observe your mind, attachment loses strength. You discover that you don't need anything external to change in order to find peace. That it is not someone's absence that breaks you, but the stories you tell yourself about that absence. That love can be lived without fear when you know your well-being does not depend on anything or anyone but you. Because true emotional freedom begins there, in no longer being a slave to what you think. And only when you learn to observe your thoughts do you begin to be master of your mind and of your life. When you live trapped in emotional attachment, it is not you who decides. It is your fear, your anxiety, and your need to hold on to what you cannot control. It is waking up every day with the weight of dependence, with the feeling that your peace is held hostage by someone else. And if you do nothing, that cycle becomes your entire life. That is why subscribing is no small gesture. It is a declaration of freedom against the patterns that keep you bound. Here you will not find distractions or empty phrases. Here you will receive every week Stoic tools, deep ideas, and practical strategies to reclaim your serenity, strengthen your identity, and learn to love without chains. Not subscribing means staying trapped in the same thoughts, continuing to give your power to fear, continuing to lose your essence while you try to hold on to what does not depend on you. Subscribing means choosing yourself, having a refuge, a voice that reminds you that calm can be trained, that emotional freedom is built, and that your dignity deserves to be defended. If you recognize yourself in these words, don't ignore this opportunity, because the truth is simple and raw. Suffering from attachment does not disappear with good intentions. It disappears with decisions. This may be the first of them. Do it now. Subscribe. Each episode may be that phrase, that reflection, that teaching that slowly frees you from the attachment that today steals your peace. Your life was not made to be lived in chains. It was made to be lived with clarity, purpose, and virtue. Sixth Stoic lesson: redefine your identity beyond others. Emotional attachment grows when you forget who you are without the reflection of others. You define yourself by how they look at you, by what they think, by what they expect of you. You measure your worth based on the love you receive, the attention you are given, the promises they make to you. And the more you cling to that version of yourself built by others' eyes, the further you move away from your essence. You do not know who you are without the other, and that is the root of your suffering. When your identity depends on someone else, you lose control of your life. You become an emotional puppet. Your moods rise and fall according to another person's words, decisions, or silences. You abandon yourself in search of being accepted, loved, validated. And without realizing it, you hand over the greatest power you have, the power to define yourself. Stoicism reminds you of a simple and forceful truth. You are not what others think of you. Marcus Aurelius wrote it clearly. If you seek happiness outside yourself, you will never be happy. If your peace depends on others, you will never have peace. These words are not abstract philosophy, they are a practical guide. If you place your worth in the hands of others, you condemn yourself to live subject to a judgment you cannot control. Attachment is born from this confusion. You believe someone else can give you the certainty you cannot find in yourself. If that person loves you, you feel valuable. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. If they leave, you feel like you lose a part of yourself, but no one can take away what you are. What you gave away was not your identity, but the power you decided to surrender by allowing others to define your meaning. Redefining your identity is returning to yourself. It is remembering that you are much more than a relationship, more than the role you play in someone else's life, more than the labels others have put on you. You are your values, your choices, your character, and that, as the Stoics taught, is the only thing that truly belongs to you. Epictetus said it this way: you are not the things that happen to you, you are how you choose to face them. Your circumstances change, people come and go, but your essence remains. When you build your identity on what does not depend on you, life shakes you every time the outside changes. But when your center is within, when you define yourself by your virtue, your character, your purpose, nothing can bring you down. To achieve this, you need to stop seeking approval everywhere. Ask yourself, how much of what I do comes from my essence, and how much do I do just to not disappoint someone? How many decisions have I made only to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid being left behind? If the answer hurts, that's fine. It hurts because it is honest. And it is in that discomfort where your freedom begins. Working on yourself is not selfishness, it is responsibility. Dedicate time to knowing yourself. Explore what makes you happy beyond external expectations. Discover your talents, cultivate your passions, strengthen your character, learn to enjoy your own company. When you know who you are without the need for external validation, attachment loses its grip. You no longer need someone to choose you in order to feel complete. You choose yourself. Marcus Aurelius also reminds us, happiness depends on you, not on others. And it is not just a nice phrase, it is a principle of life. It means that your peace, your joy, and your meaning cannot be held hostage by someone else's decisions. If today someone stays, be grateful. If tomorrow someone leaves, be grateful too. Because your essence does not change with absences, it only becomes clearer. Redefining your identity also means learning to set boundaries. You are not responsible for carrying what others feel or decide. You are not anyone's savior. You are not here to sustain everyone else's happiness at the expense of your own. Your life is yours, and only when you claim it can you share it in a healthy way. If you don't, you end up losing yourself in a maze of others' expectations, forgetting your own needs, your own dreams, your own path. Emotional attachment promises you security, but it steals your freedom. It tells you that without the other you are nothing, when in reality you have been complete since before any bond. Stoicism gives you back that certainty. No matter who leaves, who changes, who stops loving you, you are still you. Your worth is not in what you receive, but in what you are. Imagine for a moment that you start living from that place, from your center, from your essence, from a space where your identity does not depend on anything external. You no longer fear losing because you know nothing is missing. You no longer seek to fit in because you already belong to yourself. You no longer beg for affection because you know you are worthy of love, beginning with your own. This is not achieved overnight. It is a process, a constant training. Each time you feel that your worth depends on someone else's gaze, remind yourself, my essence does not change with the opinion of others. Each time the fear of losing paralyzes you, think, what I am cannot be lost. Each time you catch yourself seeking your identity in others, stop and return to yourself. Emotional detachment is born from this place. When you know who you are, you don't need to chain yourself to anyone. You can love deeply, but you don't beg for love. You can accompany, but you don't depend. You can share yourself, but you never lose yourself. And from there, relationships transform. They stop being a struggle to hold on and become a space where you choose to give and receive freely. True strength begins the moment you decide that no one else will define you, that your peace, your purpose, and your worth are yours, that you are not incomplete, that you do not need to be saved, that you are not less if someone leaves. Only when you remember who you are without others can you love better, because only he who belongs to himself can love without chains. When you redefine your identity beyond others, you will not stop feeling, but you will stop suffering unnecessarily. You will learn that your happiness does not depend on someone staying, but on you staying with yourself. And that, as the Stoics taught, is the greatest freedom of all. Seventh Stoic lesson, embrace solitude as training. You have fled from solitude almost your entire life. You fill it with noise, with superficial conversations, with empty relationships, with endless distractions. But every time you are left alone with yourself, something makes you uncomfortable. The questions you don't want to hear appear, the fears you don't know how to face, the truths you have tried to hide under layers of company. And then you look outside for what you don't give yourself within: validation, comfort, refuge. But as long as you keep running from yourself, you will remain a slave to any bond that promises you company. Emotional attachment feeds on that fear. It is not only that you need the other, it is that you do not know how to be with yourself. You believe silence is emptiness, that solitude is abandonment, that not having someone nearby is the same as not being worthy. But it is not so. Solitude, understood with awareness, is deep training for the soul. It is the space where you stop trying to complete yourself in others and start finding yourself within. Marcus Aurelius said it with serenity. The noble man is sufficient unto himself, but enjoys the company of others. Look carefully. He does not say you should isolate yourself or reject people, but rather that you cannot depend on anyone to feel whole. Enjoying company is beautiful, but needing it to survive is chaining yourself. Solitude is a mirror. It shows you who you are when no one sees you. It confronts you with your deepest thoughts, with your wounds, with the masks you wear in the outer world. At first, it is uncomfortable, painful, even frightening. But if you dare to stay, you discover that in that silence lies your freedom. Because if you learn to be well with yourself, no absence can destroy you. When you do not train solitude, every bond becomes a necessity. You are with someone not because you choose, but because you fear being without them, and that is not love, it is dependence. Healthy love is born when two complete people decide to walk together. If you seek the other to fill your emptiness, your relationship will be fragile, because you will be demanding that someone else do for you what only you can do. Inhabit yourself. Stoicism teaches us that virtue lies in self-sufficiency. Epictetus reminded us with force, "No one is free who depends on another." And this phrase, more than a philosophical principle, is a practical guide. As long as your peace depends on someone else's attention, affection, or presence, it is not yours. It is borrowed, fragile, ephemeral. But when you learn to be well with yourself, company becomes a choice, not a lifeline. Training solitude does not mean living in isolation, but learning to listen to your own voice. Dedicate moments of silence each day, even if they are uncomfortable. Turn off the external noise, close the networks, disconnect from the world for a moment, and reconnect with yourself. Discover what you think, what you feel, what you fear. Truly know yourself. Without masks, without validation, without expectations. It is there, in that intimacy with yourself, where inner strength begins. When you cultivate peace in your solitude, love changes. You no longer seek from lack, but from abundance. You don't beg for attention, you share it. You don't plead for belonging, you choose it. You don't unite with someone because you need them, but because you prefer them. And that conscious choice is what builds more authentic, free, and lasting bonds. Society pushes you to fear solitude because it wants you distracted, trying to fill voids with things, people, or stimuli you don't need. But the Stoics knew that only those who feel complete within themselves can truly live. Solitude is the gym of the soul. There you strengthen your character, train your serenity, and learn to be sufficient unto yourself. Seneca said it bluntly, "The wise man is never alone. He is with himself, and when you understand this, something changes forever. You discover that you have always had with you the only companion who will never abandon you, yourself. When you choose yourself, you are no longer afraid that others won't. When you inhabit yourself, no absence empties you. When you learn to be with yourself, you stop needing someone else to complete you. Perhaps at first solitude will hurt you, because it will confront you with the parts of yourself you have avoided looking at. But it is right there where your freedom is born, in daring to stay with yourself until silence stops being uncomfortable and becomes a refuge, until your own company is enough, until you discover that you do not need anyone to feel whole, even if you choose to share yourself. Training solitude as a Stoic virtue is not a rejection of love, but an invitation to love better. When you do not need, you choose. When you choose, you do not control. And when you do not control, you love without chains. And that love, free and conscious, is the only one that cannot break you. If today solitude frightens you, start little by little. Give yourself spaces where no one else intervenes. Listen to your breathing, write down what you feel, observe your thoughts. Allow yourself to know yourself, and over time you will discover that the more you choose yourself, the more peace you find. Solitude is not a punishment, it is training. It is the reminder that your worth, your peace, and your fullness do not depend on anyone else. It is the proof that you can be complete with yourself, and from there, share yourself with the world. Because only he who belongs to himself can love without fear, without attachment, and without losing himself. When you embrace your own company, you will stop asking others to fill your voids, and then, for the first time, you will begin to love from freedom. That is the true strength of the soul, to be with yourself, to inhabit yourself, to choose yourself, and from there, to choose others without chains. Eighth Stoic lesson: replace expectations with gratitude. Emotional attachment is born from a silent trap. You expect others to be the way you want them to be. You expect them to act as you would act, to love as you love, to respond as you would respond. You create in your mind an invisible mold and place it over the person in front of you. And when they don't fit, when they don't fulfill what you imagined, when they don't respond as you dreamed, you feel they fail you, betray you, hurt you. But the truth is simpler and harder to accept. Suffering comes from your expectations, not from the other's actions. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus summed it up in a phrase that is almost an act of liberation. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish. Accept them as they happen, and your life will flow serenely. All your pain is born from pretending that the world works according to your rules. You expect someone to always love you the same, to never change, to never leave. You expect life to give you certainty where there is only movement. You expect permanence in a universe built on change, and those expectations are invisible chains that bind you to suffering. When you expect too much from someone, you turn the relationship into an implicit negotiation. I give because I expect you to give me the same. But real love is not a transaction. Loving with freedom is giving without turning it into a debt. It is appreciating what you receive without demanding guarantees. It is learning to enjoy the present without turning it into promises that no one can fulfill. And this can only be achieved when you replace your expectations with gratitude. Gratitude is an antidote to the anxiety that attachment generates. Instead of thinking, I need this person to give me more, you think, I am grateful for what this person gives me now. You replace complaint with presence. You replace lack with abundance. When you are grateful, you stop obsessing over what is missing and start valuing what you have. And paradoxically, that gives you peace. Marcus Aurelius explained it forcefully. When you rise in the morning, think of the privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love. This thought, simple and powerful, reminds you that nothing is guaranteed. Not people, not circumstances, not even the day ahead of you. Everything you enjoy now may disappear tomorrow. And precisely because of that, gratitude transforms the way you experience life. It teaches you to value each moment as if it were the last. The problem with living from expectation is that it robs you of the present. You live projecting imaginary futures and miss what you have now. If you expect someone to act exactly as you desire, you are frustrated as soon as they don't. If you expect a relationship to last forever, you live in constant fear that it will end. If you expect things never to change, you suffer each time they do. Attachment ties you to an impossible fantasy, and life inevitably shows you that the control you think you have is an illusion. Gratitude, on the other hand, places you in the now. It does not deny that things change, but teaches you to appreciate them while they exist. It does not prevent someone from leaving, but allows you to honor the time shared without turning it into pain. It does not eliminate losses, but helps you see what remains instead of obsessing over what is missing. When you replace expectations with gratitude, you also free others from the burden of fulfilling your illusions. You allow them to be who they are, not who you want them to be. And in that space of acceptance, relationships flourish. Love stops being control and starts being companionship. You stop measuring how much you receive and start valuing what the other can give from their authenticity. Seneca said it simply, "The grateful man loves, even when he no longer receives." Gratitude does not demand permanence. It needs no conditions. It is a profound recognition that everything that arrives is a temporary gift. And when you understand this, the anxiety of holding on disappears, because you no longer seek to possess, you seek to live. This does not mean settling for relationships that harm you or with people who do not respect your boundaries. Gratitude is not resignation. It is choosing to value what you have while you have it, without giving up your dignity. You can be grateful and let go. You can be grateful and set boundaries. You can be grateful and decide to walk away, because gratitude connects you with what depends on you, your capacity to appreciate, your power to choose, your freedom not to depend on anything external. Training this mindset requires daily practice. Start with small things. Be grateful for every conversation, every smile, every moment of company. Be grateful for the lessons, even the painful ones. Be grateful for what was and also for what ceased to be. And every time you notice your mind demanding more than there is, remind yourself, nothing belongs to me. Everything I receive is a gift. Attachment wants you to believe that your well-being depends on others fulfilling your expectations. But Stoicism reminds you that your peace depends only on you. When you learn to replace complaint with gratitude, attachment loses its grip. You no longer need to control what does not belong to you. You no longer suffer over what you expected and did not happen. And suddenly you discover you are freer than you thought. Because living with gratitude is understanding that everything you have today is a loan from time, and while you have it, you celebrate it. And when it goes, you let it go without breaking. That is the freedom that attachment denies you. That is the serenity the Stoics cultivated. And that is the lesson. Stop demanding life to be as you want and start being grateful for it as it is. When you do, suffering dissolves. And in its place something greater, deeper, more serene appears. The ability to love without chains and to live with a peaceful heart. Ninth Stoic lesson, accept the end without resistance. One of the greatest sources of suffering in emotional attachment is not the loss itself, but the resistance to accepting that something has ended. We cling to relationships that no longer sustain us, to promises that no longer exist, to people who are no longer the same. We remain trapped in a before that will never return, trying to prolong the inevitable, building fantasies where everything could be as it once was. But life moves forward without asking our permission. Epictetus explained it with a clarity that both hurts and liberates. It is not loss that grieves you, but the illusion of possession. You do not suffer because something goes away, but because you believed that what you had was yours forever. And when reality shows you otherwise, you feel as though a part of you has been torn away. But what is taken from you was never yours. You only had it on loan for a time. Accepting the end does not mean renouncing love or memories. It means recognizing that everything is impermanent and choosing to release what has already fulfilled its cycle. It means honoring what was lived without turning it into a prison. It means understanding that closing chapters is not losing, but making space for what comes next. The problem is that we confuse love with holding on. We believe that if we let go, we stop loving. But that is not true. Love is not demanding permanence. It is being grateful for existence. Love is not forcing someone to stay. It is respecting their path, even when it diverges from ours. When you love with attachment, you fear the end and live trying to prevent it. When you love with awareness, you accept the end as a natural part of life. Marcus Aurelius invites us to contemplate this truth with serenity. Observe how all things are transformed, how everything that is born also dissolves. Nothing remains the same. People change, feelings change, stages change. And resisting that flow is like trying to stop the sea with your hands. You exhaust yourself, frustrate yourself, break yourself. When you refuse to accept the end, you become trapped in endless waiting. You wait for them to return, to change, to fulfill promises they made when everything was different. And while you wait, you stop living. You become a prisoner of what was, leaving no space for what is. But when you choose acceptance, the present returns. The pain remains, but it ceases to become suffering, because suffering is born of resistance, and acceptance is its cure. Acceptance is not forgetting. It is not denying what you feel, nor pretending it didn't hurt. Acceptance is looking reality in the eye with an open heart and saying, "This existed, I loved it, I am grateful, and now I let it go." It is allowing the memory to live without dragging you, letting gratitude be greater than nostalgia. It is understanding that the value of something is not in how long it lasts, but in how much it transformed you. The Stoics practiced this detachment intentionally. Each day they reminded themselves that everything they had, their body, their family, their friends, even their own ideas, did not belong to them entirely. Everything is borrowed, everything can leave at any moment. And far from creating coldness, this awareness taught them to love more deeply, because they knew that each instant is unrepeatable. Think of the times you suffered because you couldn't let go, of the days you clung to something that had already gone, waiting for life to return what you had lost. Ask yourself, how much longer do you want to keep fighting the inevitable? How much of your present are you willing to sacrifice for something that no longer exists? Every minute spent resisting change is a minute you never get back. Accepting the end is an act of self-love. It is recognizing that you deserve peace, that you deserve to be where you are chosen, that you deserve to walk unburdened. It is allowing yourself to open space for new people, new experiences, new versions of yourself. You cannot fill a cup that clings to the old. You need to empty it, even if it hurts, to make way for what comes. Seneca expressed it brilliantly. He who accepts fate walks with it. He who resists is dragged. Life will follow its course, with or without your permission. You can choose to resist and suffer, or to accept and move forward. The difference lies in your attitude, not in the facts. Accepting the end does not make you cold, it makes you free. Free from the illusion of control, free from the chains of what once was, free from the need for everything to be eternal in order to be valuable. Free to love what you have today without fearing its loss tomorrow. Free to be grateful, to release, and to continue. The next time life asks you to close a cycle, remember, it is not about denying the pain, but about allowing yourself to pass through it. It is not about forgetting, but about letting go. It is not about erasing the past, but about making space for the present, because nothing ever truly dies when you are grateful for it, but everything destroys you if you cling to it. When you accept the end without resistance, you stop living trapped in what no longer is. And in that moment, you return to yourself the greatest power, to be present again, whole with yourself. Accepting that something ends is the first step to beginning anew, and until you do, you will remain imprisoned by a past that no longer exists. Stoicism teaches you that closure is not loss, but transformation, because everything that leaves makes space for you to find yourself, and when you see it, you discover that you never really lost anything, you simply stopped carrying what no longer belonged to you. 10th, Stoic lesson, build your purpose beyond relationships. One of the greatest mistakes we are taught from childhood is to believe that our life revolves around relationships. We are told over and over that happiness lies in finding someone, that without a partner you are incomplete, that you are nobody if you don't have someone by your side. And without realizing it, we grow up searching in others for the meaning we never learned to build within ourselves. That is where emotional attachment is born. when your purpose, your value, and your identity depend on another person. When you make someone else the center of your life, your entire world becomes fragile. If that person stays, you breathe. If they leave, you collapse. If they validate you, you shine. If they reject you, you fade. You live at the mercy of decisions that are not yours, of emotions you cannot control, of paths that are not your own. And when you lose yourself this way, you begin to measure your existence by the love you receive, not by the life you choose. Stoicism reminds you that your purpose cannot be built on something that does not depend on you. Epictetus taught this with absolute clarity. Happiness and freedom begin with an understanding of one principle. Some things are within your control and others are not. You do not control the feelings of others. You do not control their promises. You do not control whether they decide to stay or to go. But you do control what you do with your time, where you direct your energy, and who you choose to be. When your purpose is tied to a relationship, everything that happens outside of you threatens your peace. That is why you cling. That is why you fear letting go. That is why the idea of loss hurts so much. But if you build your life on what depends solely on you, your character, your values, your choices, you reclaim an immense power, the power to live without fear of loss. Marcus Aurelius expressed it in his Meditations. True happiness is to do what your nature dictates. Ask yourself, what part of you is living your own nature, and what part is trying to fit into the mold others expect of you? How much of what you do comes from your dreams, and how much from your fear of losing? If your life revolves only around sustaining a bond, you have given away your freedom without realizing it. Building a purpose beyond relationships does not mean ceasing to love. On the contrary, it allows you to love better. When your sense of life does not depend on another person, you choose from abundance and not from lack. You love because you want to, not because you need to. You accompany without demanding. You share without possessing. You walk alongside someone without making them your lifeline. And that freedom is the foundation of the healthiest, most authentic, and most enduring bonds. Emotional attachment arises when you confuse love with direction. When your north is the expectations of another person, you lose your way every time things change. But if your compass is your purpose, no ending can destroy you. You may cry, you may miss them, but you do not break, because you understand that your life still has meaning, that your story does not end with someone else's. To find your purpose, you need to look within. Ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? What are you passionate about? What contribution do you want to leave in the world? What virtues do you want to cultivate? The Stoics taught that the highest goal is to live in accordance with our rational and virtuous nature, and that means your center cannot rest on anything external, not on a relationship, not on a promise, not on someone who chooses you today but might not tomorrow. Seneca wrote, "The man who depends on another for happiness has given up his freedom." And that is exactly what conscious detachment seeks to prevent, that you surrender your power to something you cannot control. When your purpose is yours, your happiness is too. You do not give it away, you do not negotiate it, you do not condition it. This does not mean isolating yourself or living without bonds. It means loving with your own roots. It means having a life so full and rich in meaning that sharing it is a free act, not a desperate need. If tomorrow everything changes, if someone leaves, if life confronts you with endings you did not ask for, your purpose remains. And that constancy sustains you when everything else falls apart. Personal growth is built in layers: your values, your habits, your choices, your learnings. Each day you can cultivate your character, your virtue, your resilience. Each day you can invest time in yourself, in your passions, in your personal mission. When you do, you discover that no one else can give you what you already are, whole. And from there, love ceases to be attachment and becomes choice. If today you feel that your life revolves only around someone else, stop and breathe. This is not a reproach, it is an invitation to remember that your story is much greater than any relationship, that your value is not measured by how many choose you, but by how much you choose yourself, that you can love without losing yourself, share without emptying yourself, accompany without depending. Building your purpose beyond relationships is choosing your freedom. It is reclaiming your center, your direction, your life. It is reminding yourself that meaning is not given to you by anyone else. You create it. And when you understand this, you stop fearing solitude, you stop clinging to what does not add, and you begin to walk lightly. Because loving better begins with living better, and living better begins with having a purpose so deep that no ending can break it. That is the Stoic path to true fulfillment, to cultivate your virtue, to guard your essence, and to make your life your greatest work. The Stoic art of letting go, how to reclaim your life and your peace. The truth is that no one teaches us how to let go. We grow up believing that love means holding on, that happiness depends on keeping close the people we love, that the success of a relationship is measured by its duration and not by its authenticity. We are told that true love lasts forever and that if someone leaves, you failed. And so, without realizing it, we turn others into the center of our existence. But life, with its harshness and its wisdom, confronts us with reality. Nothing belongs to us, and yet everything is worthy of being loved. I know it hurts. It hurts to let go of someone who was your refuge, your home, your certainty. It hurts to accept that what you thought was eternal had an expiration date. It hurts to feel that, in letting go of someone, you're also losing a part of yourself. But it hurts more to keep holding on to what cannot be sustained. It hurts more to chain yourself to a past that no longer exists, to live trapped in memories that fade while the present slips through your hands. Clinging to what is gone is renouncing your own life. Emotional attachment is not broken by brute force, but by awareness. It is not about ceasing to feel, but about learning to feel without depending. It begins the day you look in the mirror and ask yourself the questions that make you uncomfortable. Who am I without that person? What remains of me when everything external disappears? What purpose do I have beyond any relationship? And even if the answers hurt at first, each one gives you back a piece of your freedom. You discover that your value was never in what someone gave you, but in what was always within you. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus reminded us, the things you love are borrowed, enjoy them, but when life demands them back, surrender them without resistance. These words do not invite you to coldness, but to gratitude. They remind us that the beauty of life lies in its temporality, that nothing is guaranteed, and precisely because of that, every moment is a gift. You do not love to hold on, you love to give thanks. You do not love to control, you love to share. Think about your story. Think about the people who were once part of your life and are no longer here. Think about the hugs you gave, the promises you believed eternal, the moments you swore unforgettable. Do you see it? Everything changed, everything transformed, and yet each experience made you grow, shaped you, brought you here. Nothing is ever completely lost. Everything leaves a teaching, a scar, a beginning. The problem is not that something ended, but that you refuse to keep living because you cling to what no longer exists. Marcus Aurelius, in his wisdom, summed it up like this: accept everything which happens as woven into the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. There is no mistake in what leaves. There is no injustice in what ends. What departs creates space. What is lost opens paths. What is released gives you back to yourself. Today, I want to invite you to choose yourself, to put your energy where you truly have control, in yourself, in your purpose, in your virtue, to begin building a life that makes sense beyond relationships, a life that belongs to you even if everything else changes. Because when your center is within you, no absence can break you. When your purpose is yours, no loss can empty you. It is not about loving less, but about loving better, loving from freedom, not from need, loving from gratitude, not from fear, loving from abundance, not from lack. And that is only possible when you remember that your worth does not depend on anyone else, that your life is yours, that your peace is yours, that your time is yours. If you feel that attachment has stolen too many of your days, that your mind is trapped in what never was, that your heart still clings to what is no longer there, this is your moment, not to forget, but to accept, not to erase, but to give thanks, not to close yourself, but to be reborn. The world will not stop so that you can heal, but you can stop to find yourself. You do not have to carry what is no longer yours. You do not have to live tied to what is gone. You do not have to keep believing that you are not enough without someone else. The truth is that you are already complete. You are already free. You are already you. If something you have heard today resonated with you, do not ignore it. Subscribe. Not because this is just a podcast, but because here you will find, week after week, Stoic tools, profound ideas, and practical teachings that will remind you again and again that your life is yours. Here we do not want you just to survive. We want you to live with clarity, with purpose, and with virtue, because learning to let go is not losing. It is reclaiming yourself. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be set as the standard of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. We will see each other in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your Stoic practice with new recommended podcast sessions. Follow us so you don't miss any reflection that could help you at just the moment when everything feels overwhelming. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish episodes designed to accompany you when life feels heavy, when it's hard to stay calm, when you need a word to remind you who you are. Not following us is to risk missing exactly that lesson that could bring back the peace you have been seeking. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.